Cro-Magnon is a common name that has been used to describe the first early modern humans of the European Upper Paleolithic. Current scientific literature prefers the term European early modern humans to the term Cro-Magnon, which has no formal taxonomic status, as it refers neither to a species or subspecies nor to an archaeological phase or culture. The earliest known remains of Cro-Magnon-like humans are radiocarbon dated to 43,000 years before present. Modern indigenous Europeans descend from the Cro-Magnon peoples. Cro-Magnons were robustly built and powerful. The body was generally heavy and solid with a strong musculature. The forehead was fairly straight rather than sloping like in Neanderthals, and with only slight brow ridges. The face was short and wide. The chin was prominent. The brain capacity was about 1,600 cubic centimeters, larger than the average for modern humans. However, recent research suggests that the physical dimensions of so-called Cro-Magnon are not sufficiently different from modern humans to warrant a separate designation. Etymology. The name comes from the abri de Cro-Magnon near the commune of Les Assises de Taillac-sur-Ouille in southwestern France, where the first specimen was found. Being the oldest known modern humans in Europe, the Cro-Magnons were from the outset linked to the well-known Lascaux cave paintings and the Aurignacian culture, the remains of which were well known from southern France and Germany. As additional remains of early modern humans were discovered in archaeological sites from Western Europe and elsewhere, and dating techniques improved in the early 20th century, new finds were added to the taxonomic classification. The term Cro-Magnon soon came to be used in a general sense to describe the oldest modern people in Europe. By the 1970s the term was used for any early modern human wherever found, as was the case with the far-flung Jebel Kafsi remains in Israel and various Paleo-Indians in the Americas. However, analyses based on more current data concerning the migrations of early humans have contributed to a refined definition of this expression. Today, the term Cro-Magnon falls outside the usual naming conventions for early humans, though it remains an important term within the archaeological community as an identifier for the commensurate fossil remains in Europe and adjacent areas. Current scientific literature prefers the term European early modern humans, instead of Cro-Magnon. The oldest definitely dated EEMH specimen is the Grotto del Cavallo tooth dated in 2011 to at least 43,000 years old. Assemblages and Specimens. The French geologist Louis Lottet discovered the first 5 skeletons of this type in March 1868 in a rock shelter named Abri de Cro-Magnon. Similar specimens were subsequently discovered in other parts of Europe and neighboring areas. Grotto del Cavallo. In November 2011, tests conducted at the Oxford Radiocarbon Accelerator Unit in England on what were previously thought to be Neanderthal baby teeth, which had been unearthed in 1964 from the Grotto del Cavallo in Italy. These were identified as the oldest Cro-Magnon remains ever discovered in Europe, dating from between 43,000 to 45,000 years ago. Kent's Cavern. A prehistoric maxilla fragment was uncovered in the cavern during a 1927 excavation by the Torquay Natural History Society, and named Kent's Cavern 4. In 2011 the fossil was tested and redated to at least 41,500 years old and confirmed to be Cro-Magnon, making it the earliest anatomically modern human fossil yet discovered in northwest Europe. P. Unregistered trademark Tira Kuos. The oldest Cro-Magnon remains from southeast Europe are the finds from P. Unregistered trademark Tira Kuos near the Iron Gates in Romania. The site is situated in the Danubian corridor, which may have been the Cro-Magnon entry point into Central Europe. The cave appears to be a cave hyena or cave bear den. The human remains may have been prey or carrion. No tools are associated with the finds. Os1 holotype is a robust mandible which combines a variety of archaic, derived early modern, and possibly Neanderthal features. The modern attributes place it close to European early modern humans among late Pleistocene samples. The fossil is one of the few finds in Europe which could be directly dated and is at least 37,800 years old. The Os1 mandible was discovered on February 16, 2002. A nearly complete skull of a young male and fragments of another were found in 2005, again with mosaic features, some of which are paralleled in the Os1 mandible. Later, during 2005, the OS3 fragments were assigned as being part of the same individual as OS2. Red Lady of Paviland. A complete anatomically modern male skeleton was discovered in 1823 in a cave burial in Gower, South Wales, United Kingdom. It was the first human fossil to have been found anywhere in the world. At 33,000 years old, it is still the oldest ceremonial burial of a modern human ever discovered anywhere in Western Europe. Associated finds were red ochre anointing, a mammoth skull, and personal decorations suggesting shamanism or other religious practice. Numerous tools were with the skeleton as grave goods. Genetic analysis of mtDNA yielded the haplogroup H, the most common group in Europe. P. Unregistered trademark Tiramuaerina. The P. unregistered trademark Tiramuaerina find is a single, fairly complete cranium of a woman with rugged facial traits and otherwise modern skull features, found in a lower gallery of the Women's Cave in Romania, among numerous cave bear remains. Radiocarbon dating yielded an age of 30,150 plus or minus 800 years, making it one of the oldest Cro-Magnon finds. Cro-Magnon Site. The original Cro-Magnon find was discovered in a rock shelter at Les Aziers, Dordogne, France. The type specimen from the site is Cro-Magnon 1, carbon dated to about 28,014 years old compared to Neanderthals. The skeletons showed the same high forehead, upright posture and slender skeleton as modern humans. The other specimens from the site are a female, Cro-Magnon 2, and male remains, Cro-Magnon 3. The condition and placement of the remains of Cro-Magnon 1, along with pieces of shell and animal teeth and what appear to have been pendants or necklaces, raises the question of whether they were buried intentionally. If Cro-Magnons buried their dead intentionally, it suggests they had a knowledge of ritual, by burying their dead with necklaces and tools, or an idea of disease and that the bodies needed to be contained. Analysis of the pathology of the skeletons shows that the humans of this period led a physically difficult life. In addition to infection, several of the individuals found at the shelter had fused vertebrae in their necks, indicating traumatic injury. The adult female found at the shelter had survived for some time with a skull fracture. As these injuries would be life-threatening even today, this suggests that Cro-Magnons relied on community support and took care of each other's injuries. Pathology registered trademark Eidmoster. A fossil site at Pathology registered trademark Eidmoster is located near Pathology registered trademark Erov in the Moravian region of what is today the Czech Republic. The site was discovered in the late 19th century. Excavations were conducted between 1884 and 1930. As the original material was lost during World War II, in the 1990s, new excavations were conducted. The Pathology registered trademark Eidmoster site appeared to have been a living area with associated burial ground with some 20 burials, including 15 complete human interments, and portions of 5 others, representing either disturbed or secondary burials. Cannibalism has been suggested to explain the apparent subsequent disturbance, though it is not widely accepted. The non-human fossils are mostly mammoth. Many of the bones are heavily charred, indicating they were cooked. Other remains include fox, reindeer, Ice Age horse, wolf, bear, wolverine, and hare. Remains of 3 dogs were also found, one of which had a mammoth bone in its mouth. The Pathology registered trademark Eidmoster site is dated to between 24,000 and 27,000 years old. The people were essentially similar to the French Cro-Magnon finds. Though undoubtedly modern, they had robust features indicative of a big game hunter lifestyle. They also share square eye socket openings found in the French material. Mladia. Though younger than the os skull and mandible, the finds from Mladia caves in Moravia is one of the oldest Cro-Magnon sites. The caves have yielded the remains of several individuals, but few artifacts. The artifacts found have tentatively been classified as Aurignacian. The finds have been radiocarbon dated to around 31,000 radiocarbon years. Mladia 2 is dated to 31,320 plus 410, minus 390, Mladia 9 to 31,500 plus 420, minus 400 and Mladia 8 to 30,680 plus 380, minus 360 14 C years. Other, all EEMH dates are direct fossil dates provided in 14C as BP, Kostenki 1 equals 32,600 a plus or minus 1,100. Tibia and fibula, Kyoclovina 1 equals 29,000 a plus or minus 700. Complete neurocranium from a robust individual, Kyoclovina cave, Romania, Les Roisa Mouthias 32,000, Larkna Avila Permil Max 33,000-32,000, calendar years, the Lapido child from Abrego do Lagoa, Portugal, about 24,000 years old, a fairly complete and quite robust skeleton, possibly showing some Neanderthal traits. Other sites, assemblages or specimens, Brassenpui, La Rochette, Vogel Herd, Engis, Hanar Paragraphus St. Prokop, Velika Piana. Origin of the Cro-Magnon people. Anatomically modern humans are believed to have first emerged in East Africa some 100,000 to 200,000 years ago. According to this theory, an exodus from Africa over the Arabian Peninsula around 60,000 years ago brought modern humans to Eurasia, with one group rapidly settling coastal areas around the Indian Ocean and one group migrating north to steppes of Central Asia. A mitochondrial DNA sequence of 2 Cro-Magnons from the Pagliacci cave, Italy, dated to 23,000 and 24,000 years old, identified the mtDNA as haplogroup N, typical of the descendants in Central Asia. The inland group is the founder of North and East Asians, Europeans, large sections of the Middle East, and North African populations. Migration from the Black Sea area into Europe started some 45,000 years ago, probably along the Danubian corridor. By 20,000 years ago, modern humans had reached the western margin of the continent. Cro-Magnon life, physical attributes. Cro-Magnons were anatomically modern, straight-limbed and tall compared to the contemporaneous Neanderthals. They are thought to have been on average 176.2 centimeters tall, though large males may have stood as tall as 195 cm and taller. They differ from modern-day humans in having a more robust physique and a slightly larger cranial capacity. The Cro-Magnons had long, fairly low skulls, with wide faces, prominent noses, and moderate to no pranthism. A distinctive trait was the rectangular eye orbits. Cro-Magnon vocal apparatus was like that of present-day humans and they could probably speak. Mitochondrial DNA analyses place the early European population as sister group to the Asian groups, dating the divergence to some 50,000 years ago. The very light skin tone found in modern northern Europeans is a relatively recent phenomenon, and may have only appeared in the European line as recently as 6 to 12,000 years ago, indicating Cro-Magnons had light brown to tan skin. Sequencing of finds of the late post-Ice Age hunter-gatherer populations in Europe indicate the Cro-Magnons likely had blue eyes and dark hair, and an olive complexion. A small ivory bust of a man found at Dolmavastornis and dated to 26,000 years indicates the Cro-Magnons had straight hair, though the somewhat later Venus of Brassenpui may show wavy or curly hair, possibly braided. Cro-Magnon culture. The flint tools found in association with the remains at Cro-Magnon have associations with the Aurignacian culture that Lartet had identified a few years before he found the first skeletons. The Aurignacian differ from the earlier cultures by their finely worked bone or antler points and flint points made for hafting, the production of Venus figurines and cave painting. They pierced bones, shells and teeth to make body ornaments. Like Neanderthals, the Cro-Magnons were primarily big game hunters, killing mammoth, cave bears, horses, and reindeer. They hunted with spears, javelins, and atlatl. Archery had not yet been invented. They would have been nomadic or semi-nomadic, following the annual migration of their prey, and also ate plant materials. In Mezharich village in Ukraine, several huts built from mammoth bones possibly representing semi-permanent hunting camps have been unearthed. Finds of spun, dyed, and knotted flax fibers among Cro-Magnon artifacts in Zuzlana shows they made cords for hafting stone tools, weaving baskets, or sewing garments. Apart from the mammoth bone huts mentioned, they constructed shelter of rocks, clay, branches, and animal hide fur. These early humans used manganese and iron oxides to paint pictures and may have created one early lunar calendar around 15,000 years ago. Other contemporary humans in Europe. Neanderthals. The Cro-Magnons shared the European landscape with Neanderthals for some 10,000 years or more, before the latter disappeared from the fossil record. The nature of their coexistence and the extinction of Neanderthals has been debated. Suggestions include peaceful coexistence, competition, interbreeding, assimilation, and genocide. Other modern people, like the Kafzi humans, seem to have coexisted with Neanderthals for up to 60,000 years in the Levant. Earlier studies argue for more than 15,000 years of Neanderthal and modern human coexistence in France. A simulation based on a slight difference in carrying capacity in the two groups indicates that the two groups would only be found together in a narrow zone, at the front of the Cro-Magnon immigration wave. The Neanderthal Cro-Magnon culture appears to have been influenced by the Cro-Magnons, indicating some sort of cultural exchange between the two groups. At the original Cro-Magnon site, layers of Cro-Magnon artifacts alternate with or ignition, though this may be a result of interstratified layers, or disturbances from earlier excavations. The Lapido child found at Abrego do Lagoa in Portugal has been quoted as being a possible Neanderthal Cro-Magnon hybrid, though this interpretation is disputed. Recent genetic studies of a wide selection of modern humans do however indicate some form of hybridization with archaic humans took place after modern humans emerged from Africa. About 1 to 4% of the DNA in Europeans and Asians appears to be derived from Neanderthals, though none of it can conclusively be tied to a European event. Grimaldi Man. Grimaldi Man was a name given in the early 20th century to an Italian find of two Paleolithic skeletons. When found, the skeletons were the subject of dubious scientific theories on human evolution, partly fueled by biased reconstruction of the skulls by the scientists involved. In the 1960s, the Grimaldi find, together with various other European finds of early modern humans, was classified as Cro-Magnon, though the term European early modern humans is today preferred for this assemblage. Genetics. A 2003 sequencing on the mitochondrial DNA of two Cro-Magnons identified the mtDNA as haplogroup N. Current populations with a high degree of haplogroup A1b are known to possess traces of EEMH DNA. A1b runs highest among the indigenous Basque. Several works on genetics, their blood types and cranial morphology indicate that the Basque people are direct descendants of the original Cro-Magnon population. A study of Basque DNA in 2006 showed a 1% incidence of mtDNA haplogroup U8 that was dated to the time of Cro-Magnon, but the authors noted that the low incidence of this ancestry and recent gene flow from neighboring populations meant that the current Basque population cannot be considered to be reliable examples of the physical characteristics of Cro-Magnon men. See also, List of fossil sites, List of human evolution fossils, Neanderthal interaction with Cro-Magnons, The Inheritors, a 1955 novel by William Golding about the extinction of Homo neanderthalensis through conflict with Cro-Magnon civilization, Denisova-Huminin, references. Further reading, Fagan, Brian. Cro-Magnon, How the Ice Age Gave Birth to the First Modern Humans. Bloomsbury Press. External links, Cro-Magnon 1, Smithsonian Institution The Human Origins Program.